Welcome to ABC4 News at Midday. I'm Alyssa Royster.
And I'm Matt Fons. Thanks for joining us.
We begin today with continuing coverage of Officer Eric Estrada's funeral. It just wrapped up not too long ago. Our Brian Wang, Cade Gardner, and Jonathan May are all live, bringing you the latest.
That's right. And as we speak, that procession already underway, carrying his casket to the burial site where he will be laid to rest. But first, again, we want to check in with Brian and Sarah, who are outside the arena and have been there all morning long and now into the afternoon. Hey, guys, what can you tell us?
Hey, Matt and Alyssa. Well, a busy morning so far here on this Thursday in Logan, right outside the Spectrum at Utah State University. Again, we've just finished watching the funeral services for Officer Eric Estrada.
Emotional moments in there. We'll recap those for you throughout the day, throughout the evening. But we know that the procession has gotten closer or has reached the cemetery now, just down the street from the Spectrum. Our Brian Wang is there. I want to bring him into the conversation now, part of our team coverage. Brian, what are you seeing from where you are right now?
Well, we just saw the hearse pass us by about 2 minutes ago, and we're going to do our best to give you some visuals of the conclusion of that procession. If we could go ahead and pan to the left, what you're going to see is so many service members lined up along the cemetery as that procession makes its way to where the hearse will be unloaded. The casket will come out with Officer Estrada's body, and they are going to follow it up with prayer before laying him to rest in his final resting place. And I want to say the procession, it had so many people tuning in, coming out of the USU student housing here, who paid their respects as well. And, you know, Matt said this really well on our CTV live coverage, but we really learned so much more about who Officer Estrada was. We understood he was a service member in uniform, protecting and serving, but when you have family members and you have colleagues articulating exactly who he was, what made him tick, why did he get into law enforcement, you feel like you have such a better insight into their life. You feel like you had a relationship with them somehow, and if you didn't, Officer Estrada is someone that you want to know. Officer Estrada is someone you want to be your friend. Officer Estrada is that person that you want to call when something is going wrong. And that's exactly the type of situation he was responding to. And you know, one of his colleagues said this best. They said it was no surprise that it was Officer Estrada and Sorensen on that scene, because Officer Estrada would never leave Officer Sorensen, Sergeant Sorensen, I should say, alone in a situation like that. And it's so heartbreaking when you hear it put that way, given the context of what happened in Tremonton. And, you know, Sarah talked about this a little bit too, about who Officer Estrada was, referencing his colleague who talked about his service to the community, not just because he had to, but he came up with his own creative community outreach endeavors that he wanted to pursue, that he wanted to implement at the Tremonton Garland Police Department. The police chief there also just revealing that Officer Estrada was one of the newest officers at the department, saying that he was a little bit shy at first, but when the police chief started talking about his family is when Estrada started to speak with conviction, and even helping the police chief with parenting tips, given that Estrada has 2 children of his own, and the police chief having a newborn. Officer Estrada, as Sarah was mentioning, gave the advice to wear a GoPro because you never want to miss any special moments with your kids. And you know, I was talking about this a little bit yesterday, this really weird relationship between commemorating someone and their service, but also grieving what happened. And I was really glad that so many people from the public were able to attend this funeral service, because a pastor there really put it into context. He said that tragedy and joy don't have to be binary. He talked about this concept of joy and hope. You can have joy and you can grieve at the same time. You can have joy and get through something like this. And Brian and Sarah, as I send it back to you guys were all inside the funeral services to you as well, inside the funeral service as well. And I'm sure you guys took this sentiment from that service as well when Eric Estrada started talking about his brother, saying, it's not a goodbye, it's a see you later. Very powerful there, very powerful words.
Yes, Baya, that's right. Faith played a big role in this service. This is a religious family. They talked about that. We had a pastor who opened the ceremony here who gave some remarkable words about the conflicting feelings you'll have here. Anger, joy. That's okay to have those at the same time. It's okay to feel conflicted, but at the end of the day, to keep in mind that today we're honoring his life. We're remembering Officer Estrada, which is the whole point of this.
And what a privilege it's been to be there as we got to sit in and almost a little peek behind the curtain of who this man was, of who Eric Estrada is. Some of his colleagues talked about so often we see law enforcement in a very intimidating way. Sure. But he said with this kind of experience, you get to learn a little bit about Officer Estrada, and it's clear from what his loved ones have described him as. He was a young, active, very dedicated family man, born and raised in Logan, and very committed to the Cache Valley and Box Elder County area, really.
Just 32 years old,
wow.
A young man, so much life left in front of him, and now a legacy to keep in mind. Let's bring in Cade Gardner. He has another perspective from here. Cade, tell us what you're seeing, what you've experienced throughout the day here.
Yeah, Brian, Sarah, behind me you can see the flag that's hanging between two fire trucks. This is where that funeral procession left the arena just minutes ago. And you guys were saying that he was known as a family man, and that's actually something Governor Cox hit on. Governor Cox says when he learned about Eric Estrada's death, that he went through the pictures that the family had supplied, and he got to one that broke him. And we got to see that picture today in the arena. It was a picture of Officer Estrada curled up, what looked like an uncomfortable position, in a crib with his daughter when she was really young, likely giving his wife a break so that she could get some good night's sleep. Now that's something that his brother Jesus hit home as well, that he was so dedicated to his family, especially those children, and that those children have adopted some of his characteristics, and now that he's gone, they will treasure those characteristics in their kids. His brother also said that as kids, he and Eric loved the Sandlot movie. Listen to this quote.
I'd like to share a quick quote from the movie The Sandlot. Heroes get remembered, but legends never die. Eric, you're not just a memory, you're a part of who we are. A legend in the little things, the laughs, the games, the badge, the late night talks, and the love you poured into your family and your community. This is not a goodbye, it's a see you later. We love you, we miss you, and I promise we'll keep making you proud.
And to really reinforce just how much of a family man Eric Estrada was, one of his colleagues said that he would work extra long days so that he could take off on the weekends and be with his kids, be there for their activities. We know he was a beloved youth soccer coach here in the area, just a dedicated family man, just like he was a police officer and a community member. Brian, Sarah, back to you.
All right, Cade, thank you very much for that. We've got such an insight into Officer Estrada, a little bit about his family and what he was like on the job as well.
Yeah, and it's been such a tender time over the past week and a half, and you can only imagine or try to imagine what that poor family's going through. And so we do our best to want to give them respect and not bother them. And so this was really the first time we heard from some of those family members and loved ones today. And as they shared their experiences, their memories with us, he spoke to us, or his brother spoke to us, his daughter, his former colleague spoke to us, and they were able to tell us a little bit about who he is and what we might not recognize from the outside looking in.
Yeah, we do have to address this. The police chief, Tremonton, spoke. He was one of the first people to speak, and he was telling us about the time Officer Estrada walked in to be interviewed for the job. And the chief made a quip about his name, of course, Eric Estrada. Estrada, sharing the name with the actor Eric Estrada, who portrayed a police officer on Chips decades ago. And the police chief made a quip about that. He talked about that. I'm going to play that clip for you from the funeral a short time ago.
Yeah, that's right. I was able to follow along here. We're now in the cemetery. I was able to follow along the procession as we arrived here in the cemetery. We kind of hiked up the road here and followed along. And what was really touching on our way here was seeing the Utah State University students. Many of them, this is their first week back at school. They're starting their journeys here, and I noticed they stopped and placed their hand over their hearts as they noticed the procession moving forward here. It's a very touching tribute from these Utah State University students. I'm going to step out of frame here because you can see crowds of people back here over these headstones. You know, there's people here to honor a fallen hero, pay their respects. Many of these community members were here today. They wanted to just show their love and support for someone who paid the ultimate sacrifice, and so many communities going together to make sure people can be here. I was able to speak even with a couple of police officers from Dallas, Texas. I was able to talk with, you know, Utah State students who were just they said it was okay to be late to class for something like this, just seeing the amount of people here to pay their respects. And I know that even the Box Elder County School District canceled classes today and tomorrow so people could come and attend these funeral services today. And now we are here at the Logan City Cemetery where he'll be laid to rest. And we just want to say that still so many people are just pausing around the cemetery. You know, I went to school here, I went to university here, I walked this cemetery sometimes to get to class, and I've never seen just this amount of solemn silence and this peace for people who are paying their respects. We'll of course continue to be here and provide more updates as we continue our coverage. Brian, Sarah, back over to you.
Okay, Jonathan, thank you very much. Again, he just saw the end of the procession. That all began earlier this morning. Around 10 o'clock is when Officer Estrada's funeral services began here at the Spectrum in Logan at Utah State University. We saw them slowly file out of the Spectrum. They ended up in this parking lot behind us, and from there is when they took off on that procession to the cemetery where you just saw Jonathan.
And as we've learned more about Officer Estrada and the dynamic relationships people had with him, we heard from the Tremonton police chief earlier. I think we have that soundbite for you now. Let's take a listen to the police chief describe his first impressions, his first interactions with Officer Estrada.
Eric was our newest officer. I still remember sitting in the interview boardroom as he walked in with a big smile on his face. And I remember thinking, when I saw his name, Eric Estrada, you got to be kidding me. And me thinking I'm the most clever person in the world, I couldn't wait to make a punch joke. And as Eric walked in, I said, thanks for making time away from the set to come and interview today.
Okay, so you heard that there, that we knew there was going to be a moment at some point where we addressed that, and he did, and the crowd laughed, and it was one of the lighter moments during the ceremony today. That was nice to see.
Yeah, brought a little bit of humor, a little bit of joy. Speaking of the little bit of lightness, we got to mention the weather too. If you tuned into our coverage yesterday, we covered the viewing for you, which was in Box Elder County, and you know there were downpours, which we needed, but a lot of rain, a lot of wet weather. But it's interesting to see today the sun has kind of come out, a little bit of a lighter energy here on this Thursday during a somber day. That was a great moment that we heard from so many different speakers during the funeral. One that I think we discussed really stood out. One of the first speakers we heard from was Detective Michelle Clough, who worked with Officer Estrada in the past, and she shared her experience with him and some of the things she learned from him. And one conversation she shared of theirs that I think hit many, and it was powerful for many to hear, was the conversation of what is your why? Why do you do this? Why do you become a police officer? And if we have that pulled up, I'd like to take a listen into that.
It was in the detective bullpen that Eric and I had the conversation. All of the officers here know the one. What's your why? Why are you a cop? For the most part, we all say the same things. To make a difference, because my family all do it, because I've wanted to be a cop since I was X years old. Estrada's wasn't so different. He wanted to serve the community he was raised and lived in, the one where his kids went to school and his wife worked. For Eric, they weren't empty words or goals, and as we served for the next year side by side, I saw that the community, the people he encountered every day, meant everything to him.
Again, just a little bit of a powerful little bit of what we heard from Detective Michelle Clough, one of many experiences and thoughts on Detective Estrada, or Officer Estrada rather, and the many memories people had to share about him.
Let's go to Kate Gardner now, who is with the Mayor of Tremonton for some perspective here, Kate.
I have Mayor Holgram here from Tremonton, as you were saying. Mayor, we've been talking on and off throughout the last week and a half. It's been a rough week for the city, for the communities. What did you think of this service today?
I was very humbled, very impressed by by all of those who spoke and their expressions of love, of family, and I think that was sort of to me, that was the takeaway, that the amount of service and the kind of person Eric lived was something that maybe all of us can aspire to. His love for family, his love for his community, the way he worked with his co-workers and was able to I think there was a story about he picked up a drunk driver and as a result of the way he treated this drunk driver, he quit drinking, sobered up, and has now gotten married, and those are kind of the things that Eric, the kind of a person that he was, and I think we all are going to be very, very sorry that he's not a part of our department anymore, but his family, we want to continue to support them, to love them, and to help them through what will be weeks and months and maybe even years of grieving and recovery from this horrific event. I just think that we can all come together now. We can all appreciate the sacrifice and the service of those who are the first responders of the police department and all that kind of thing. I hope that people will continue to show their respect and understanding and the situation here that we've just experienced, and a desire and maybe a commitment to live just a little bit better.
Right. Well, and we've talked about his commitment to the community. We know the community's come together over the last few days to support his family, Sergeant Sorensen's family as well. Were you surprised at all by this turnout? We had hundreds, if not thousands, of people in there today.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was not surprised. I was not surprised because I just in watching the outpouring, everything from the day that the procession, we brought those two home, and everything that's happened since nothing surprises me, and I would have not expected anything less than what we had here today.
Well, Mayor, his family's at the cemetery right now.
Yes.
You mentioned that we want to continue to love and support them. Is there any message you would like them to take home in their hearts today?
Well, just that the community is behind them, and the state is behind them, and we want to continue to support them, and we want them to know that they're still part of they're still part of us. They're still part of Tremonton and Garland, and we'll never forget them. We'll always honor them, and we will support their families as best as we can as time goes forward, and as things start settling down, and then all of a sudden you start thinking life goes on, and I can't believe life is going on around me, but I'm still suffering. We want to be cognizant. We want to be respectful of that and understand that.
Great. Well, thank you for your time, Mayor. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And that is a message that the governor had for us as well. The state is behind these families and will continue to work for them. Brian, Sarah?
Some perspective there from the mayor. Cade, we appreciate it. Thank you very much.
We want to check in with our Bayan Wang now, who's giving us another look inside the cemetery just down the road, where we understand the procession just wrapped up. Bayan, tell us what you're seeing now.
Well, we're seeing a lot of law enforcement officials and friends starting to exit the cemetery, because we understand that when they bury Officer Estrada, that is closed off to just very close family and friends. I'm going to step out of the way to show you our vantage point as we zoom in there. There are formal services happening. We heard some rifle shots go off. Usually there is a rifle volley. Traditionally, 21 shots go off in a situation like this, honoring Officer Estrada. They also lay white gloves on the casket draped in the American flag in honor and commemoration of Officer Estrada. And, you know, it's just heartbreaking to know that some of the family members that were speaking there so confidently and with so much poise in this moment of grief is now watching, they're now watching their father, their brother, their friend, their confidant, their everything being buried, laid to rest in the final resting place. And, you know, you just got to take a moment back. This is sobering. This is the real life reality for some of our men and women in uniform. When we talk about protecting and serving, when we talk about fighting crime, when we talk about community service and protecting the community, this is sometimes the unfortunate reality that comes out of this. This is why we pay the utmost respect to our law enforcement officials, to our men and women in uniform. Brian and Sarah.
Okay, our Bayan Wang giving us a look at the cemetery there, where we just saw the procession wrap up, and telling us about some of the symbolism of what we've seen so far today.
So much of that today. Our team coverage continues now with our Jonathan May, who's giving us yet another look at the ceremonies today. Hi, Jonathan.
Yeah, that's right, Brian and Sarah. It's quiet over here, so I do want to keep my voice down, as it seems the crowds of people just behind me here. Now, this is as close as you're going to get here to a shot right here, real quick here. But yeah, the crowds, the friends and families saying their final goodbyes here at the Logan City Cemetery. Now, we were able to walk along this route to see this the casket be delivered to here, and you could just see how touching this moment means for not just the people who inside the cemetery, but for the Utah State students walking outside on their way to class. You know, it seems like a lot of students, you know, of course, they're in a hurry to get to class, but once they saw that casket, once they saw that American flag that Cade showed you earlier, they just wanted to stop, place their hand over their heart, and it looked like many of them just wanted to take a moment in and just show some respect there, and really pay tribute to a fallen hero. And what you're seeing right now is we're inside the cemetery. It's crowds, hundreds of people I'm seeing here. We're seeing, you can see them past this trees here. They're just it appears like I see they're maybe gathered around the casket, or just friends and family again just gathered here. And I'm here next to other people who are, you know, of course not friends and family, but viewing from afar. And I can still, although we're not over there standing next to everyone shoulder to shoulder, but you can still feel the weight of this moment right here and right now inside Logan Cemetery. It's really touching. It's something I've never seen before here, and of course it's just it's a quiet moment. It's hard to almost raise your voice here with something like this happening, and we're not hearing anything over there. I'm not hearing any music or anything. It just seems like it's a moment of silence. Maybe people are giving speeches, offering prayers, but we're of course going to stay over here and continue to cover this touching moment as the community just says their goodbye to a fallen hero. Brian, Sarah, back over to you.
Okay, Jonathan May, thank you very much. So we're talking about the fragility of life here, reflecting on that, the finality of death, the risk these officers take every day, and yet there is still hope. I know his family is very confident that they would see Officer Estrada in the afterlife, in the future. They talked at length about that today. So many people did. But it does force you to take stock of life and gives you a little bit of perspective, things maybe we don't always think about.
It really gives you these big topics. It pushes them to the forefront of your mind and forces you to kind of face the idea of it. And we're thinking of them, of course, while they're doing that. Hey, we want to check back in with our buy-in wing, who's going to be speaking with some officers. We recognize so many here, but we understand these ones coming out of state buy-in.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, from Texas, from Dallas-Fort Worth. And when we talk about just the all hands on deck type of camaraderie, when you're dealing with an officer who's killed in the line of duty, this is what we're talking about here. People coming in from all over this country. You guys spent the day at the funeral service. You guys are honoring your brother in uniform. What has this experience been like for you?
Well, it's been amazing, especially seeing the show of support with the community and seeing how many people are showing just outpouring their love to them. Because right now it's amazing.
What has this been like for you guys?
It's been awesome. Everybody in Utah has been great. Just a bunch of thank yous from the community and the federal law enforcement from the area has been great.
And from my understanding, you guys are part of a chapter, Brotherhood chapter, that goes out to these unfortunate funerals for your partners in law enforcement. Do you ever get used to it? Or is it one of those things where each one you go to is unique and sobering in its own way?
They're all very unique, but unfortunately we do this quite often, so we do somewhat get used to it. But every time we come, it's always very moving. It's always very special, and just to see the gratitude and the thanks that we have we receive from the other officers, the families, stuff like that, it always makes it worth it.
For those who've been following our coverage from the breaking news when the tragedy happened, all the way up to the community supporting these guys through fundraisers, through just planting flags, tying these blue ribbons, to now the funeral service, him being laid to rest in his final resting place. What do you guys want people at home to know about how sobering and real these kind of situations are?
Well, behind the badge and behind the uniform is a father, is a husband, is a grandfather at times. A friend, just a buddy. We're people too. We grieve just like everybody else, and we face the fears, or we all face the fears throughout the country of going out there and answering the call, and it might be our last call. So as long as people realize that it's just a job and there's more to us just behind the badge.
And we hear the bagpipes playing. We heard some of the rifle volleys. I imagine some of the traditional, white gloves being put on the casket, draped in the American flag. What are these formalities? What do they symbolize?
What do they symbolize? Oh, just the dedication and the loss of life and their service to others. One thing, if you don't mind, if I could add, you asked your prior question.
Yes.
Now that the funeral's over with, the community's shown their support the entire time this last week, just building up to it. Just let the community know that after the funeral, that's when the challenge begins for the family. She's had everybody by her side, the police, the sheriffs, everybody's supporting them. And after today, she's going to go home to a house with nobody.
Right.
And her kids. And that's when the community really needs to step up and just show that, we're a family. Not just the police, but the community as a whole. That's when she's going to need the support the most.
And some of that community right now hearing those bagpipes there. We're going to send things back over to Brian and Sarah. Maybe we can get a closer look of that.
A great perspective from help coming in across the country. Brian, thank you.
Yeah, let's listen in to those bagpipes there near the gravesite. Let's take a listen.
cuerpo del oficial Eric Estrada, el oficial de la policía de Tremonton que perdió la vida en medio los actos protocolares que se desarrollan acá. El cuerpo del oficial Estrada salió del féretro de ese auto fúnebre y este ha sido la sepultura privada entre familia, compañeros, amigos del oficial Eric Estrada. En nuestras emisiones de las 5 de la tarde y 10 de la noche lo tenemos bajo.
And there's beginning to wrap up here. Things are beginning to come to a close. People are beginning to clear out as they consider their feelings and process their emotions today.
Really a heavy morning here in Logan, a heavy Thursday so far, and we've gotten to see a lot of emotions, a lot of connections between people, and new connections too, and we know our Brian Wang has witnessed some of that as well. Brian, you've met with, we know, a handful of wonderful people today who shared their experiences with you. Tell us a little more.
Yeah, well, Sarah, Brian, you guys talk about that healing process, just processing everything that's going on. Let me step out of the way, because they're not just dealing with this by themselves. They're walking up to law enforcement officials that they don't even know, giving them a hug, saying thank you for your service. While Officer Estrada may no longer be with us, one person told us that when they see law enforcement officials in uniform, that spirit is there because that mission is to protect a community. That spirit of bettering a community is still there. Let's go ahead and pan to the left here just a little bit as we see people starting to exit the burial. As we wrapped up with the bagpipes there, that's usually the indication in these burials that the casket is being lowered. And as I was saying, it was closed off to the general public. Only friends and family allowed to witness that, understandably. We are seeing a lot of them exit now, and I was mentioning seeing just so many of them handshake and hug law enforcement officials who came on their motorbikes, who are standing and having a detail on this area, serving as security, anything they can to make this process as convenient as possible for close family and friends of Officer Estrada. And I say convenient very lightly, as we are going to step to the left here and reframe our shot as some of the motorcyclists there, you say exiting, are now coming down our route. A little bit information about these motorcycle cops. They came in from many neighboring states and all across Utah as well. One of them told me that there were about 150 motorcycle police officers who were asked to come and be present here at this burial, at this funeral service. And even if they weren't asked, I mean, from all the law enforcement officials we spoke to, this is something that many of them are volunteering their time to do, even though they may have not known Officer Estrada. When you have this kind of brotherhood, it helps with the healing process. When Officer Estrada's family is surrounded by so many people saying how much Officer Estrada meant to them and how much they're praying for the family, that also helps with the healing process. And you know, Officer Estrada's family released a statement not too long ago, so we know that they asked for their privacy, but they are engaging with the community as well, saying that the prayers and condolences are being heard. They are seeing these messages come in, and they are so very, very grateful. And you know, it's just it's such a sobering moment. You know, I'm giving handshakes to these law enforcement guys too, and there's a really different feel. There's a very different feel to it. I mean, even in our newscast, we always thank them for their service and highlight some of the work they do in the community. But following a situation like this, it feels like it's just so much more. Genuine's not the right word, but I think there's just so much more of a deeper connection with the law enforcement community following tragedy like this. Brian, Sarah.
Our Brian Wang there, he mentioned the connection, and we heard that from Officers Estrada's loved ones in the funeral services today. They mentioned through all this tragedy, they will always support Sergeant Sorensen's family as well as Deputy Allred as well moving forward. They say that connection now will always be there.
And through his family and his colleagues, we've been learning so much about who Officer Estrada was and what he was like. And here's a little bit of what we learned.
We lost 10% of our department in one night.
Born and raised in Logan, Officer Eric Estrada is remembered by his family as a person full of life, joy, and kindness. His loss is felt closely by so many.
We have Malinois here in the coffee shop, and he would love on the Malinois every time he was here. He wanted to have his own one day, but he had small kids, so he had to wait. And in the meantime, he would just come in here and love on the ones that we have here. So it was always super genuine, just a nice guy.
His wife, Brittany, says he's the best father and husband. We're so thankful for the time we had with Eric. I know he is in heaven, smiling down. Officer Estrada began his law enforcement career in 2017 with the Logan Police Department and then joined the Box Elder County Sheriff's Office, where he first served in the jail. Then he worked as a patrol officer and detective at the North Park Police Department before returning to Box Elder County to work in the jail again. It was only earlier this year that Officer Estrada joined the Tremonton Police Department.
Things like this don't happen in these little communities that often, and when this happens, you're just like, wow, you know. It's just scary.
His nickname, Chips, after the actor Eric Estrada, best known for his role as Ponch on that popular police series Chips. In fact, that Eric Estrada posted a tribute to Officer Eric Estrada on his X account, saying there's a special kind of person that makes a 100% commitment regardless of if it puts them in harm's way. Someone who is willing to put it all on the line for others. Eric's legacy is one of love, service, and compassion. That's what his brother Jesus said in an obituary, concluding, though his time with us was far too short, Eric's light will never fade.
Just a little bit of what we learned about Officer Estrada during this process, and of course the family knows so much more. We're grateful they let us in a little bit into his life and what he was like. Really a pleasure, a privilege to learn about. During a tragedy of this size, it's interesting to hear on the individual level how it affects the one. And we're going to send it over to Jonathan May, who's going to give us a little bit of a unique perspective of someone who's really been on the front line of planning this whole service. We understand, Jonathan.
Yeah, that's right, Brian, Sarah. I'm here with Lieutenant Cam Ronan of the Utah Highway Patrol. And now, Lieutenant, a lot of us were standing back here. This was as close as we could get here, and we just wanted to, you know, you've been to these before, you've been here before. For people who are up there, what are they seeing? What's going on over there?
The Graveside service for law enforcement is and military really is very ceremonial. There's a lot of things that are done there that are very emotional. You'll have, of course, the bagpipes and the 21 gun salute, along with they'll fold the flag and present it to the family. We also have something called the last call, where the officer is signed off duty for the last time. Of course, at the time of the incident, they were still on duty and had never been signed off. So at the Graveside service, they do their last call where they sign the officer off duty for the last time. And then after that, we have the flyover. So a lot of things that are very ceremonial, and it evokes a lot of emotions for the family and for the officers in the area.
I can't imagine being over here. I can feel the weight of that emotion, and I've noticed, you know, people are starting to, the crowds are starting to get smaller, but there's still a large number of people over there. What may be happening right now that the music is, I've heard the bagpipes stop and whatnot?
So they concluded the main kind of the ceremonial service at Graveside service, and now they're having more of a personal moment for the family and for the officers of the department who knew him best. So just paying their last respects.
And I know this is a touching tribute today, but what happens now with the community going forward? I saw the whole town of Logan, it seems like, would stop when they saw the casket go by on the road. What kind of, you've been in this for a while, what do communities kind of go through next after something like this, an emotional day? Yeah, you know, different communities do different things to try to remember the officer in different ways, but this is something that carries on for a long time. It takes a while to heal these kind of wounds and to really help the family and honor the fallen. So, you know, here in the future, they'll add his name to our wall here in Utah for fallen officers, but then he'll also have a time where he's added to the wall here back in Washington, D.C. as well. And you know, someone who's not in law enforcement, I'm always surprised by how close everyone is, the bond. I talked with some officers who were from Dallas, Texas, and they were here. What is that bond that just brings, it's a family, it seems? Yeah, it is. It's a brotherhood. It's a family, as you said, where, you know, it doesn't matter where you are. We all experience things where we would be there to back each other up and to take care of each other. So when something like this happens, no matter if you're in Utah or in New York or wherever you are, you feel it. And my last question for anyone, you know, here watching at home, what do you think would be a big takeaway from this? You know, we obviously want to pay our respects and just know that the ultimate sacrifice was made, but for people, you know, being here, going through this, what is the takeaway here? You know, it's just an emotional, hard day. Yeah. From here, you work on healing and supporting the family who's lost their father and husband, and see what we can do to be better as a people and as a community. Thank you so much, Lieutenant Ronan, for your time. And it's a very sombering, quiet day here in Logan City Cemetery, as the community is mourning, friends and family are mourning, and they are paying their respects to a fallen hero. Brian, Sarah, back over to you.
Indeed, so much remembering, so much planning. People from all walks of life who maybe don't know one another, but everyone got one of these, and I don't know how well you can see this, but this is a little ribbon that was handed out when you walk through the doors of the Spectrum here, and people have them pinned onto their lapels, they're carrying them.
Yeah. Just one example of the eye to detail we've really witnessed, not just today, but yesterday in the viewing as well as the procession last week. It's continued over the last week and a half. Today, we mentioned it earlier, but as you walk into the Spectrum, they had a table laid out as a tribute table to Officer Estrada with photos and memorabilia from his life, and we were able to kind of witness some of that they clearly put all this thought really into these services to make sure we were able to fully understand the kind of person he was and how much love people had for him.
Well, and the remarkable speed in which it all came together. Yeah. To think of the type of planning and logistics that you have to work out to pull off something like this, to make it dignified and respectful, to make sure everyone is included, to make sure we hear from the people who knew him the best. All of that, at least to us, we weren't behind the scenes, but it appeared to go flawlessly today.
And mind you, not just once, 2 days in a row.
That's
We're
right.
doing everything we did today again tomorrow for Sergeant Sorensen, and the details don't stop. They take both days so seriously, and there's so much care you can tell that's put into it by family and loved ones, but also by the officials and the workers who are helping them get this really kind of across the finish line.
So my impression from joining the planning meetings for the coverage of this is that, you know, every situation is different. The agencies generally have a plan for when something like this happens, but you have to tailor it to each person, to their families, to who's available at any given time. And I think things just aligned today and tomorrow for these two funerals to happen, and to have so many people who are so good at doing this, handling it. It's been a very good experience, I think, for a lot of people.
And we mentioned not just today, not just tomorrow, but yesterday, if you followed along on our coverage, you know it was a very rainy day, but that didn't stop people from showing up in Box Elder County to the viewing. And our Brian Wang was there. He brought us that coverage. And Brian, I know you spoke to some people with some pretty powerful stories and reasons of why they wanted to go to that viewing yesterday.
Well, and you talk about the dedication when it's pouring rain, heavy rain, shortly before 3 p.m. yesterday, right before the public viewing kicked off. People were waiting in line. They didn't care if they got drenched because they wanted to pay their respects to both of these fallen officers. Take a look.
Heavy rain couldn't wash away their commitment to honor the fallen.
Why?
It's a very tight-knit community, even throughout a community response, a national response, and I feel like it's bringing all of us together to support these amazing men.
Tremonton Garland police officer Eric Estrada and Sergeant Lee Sorensen paying the ultimate sacrifice of protecting their community, and in turn, the community stepping up for them.
It's bringing all of us together to support these amazing men.
Flags planted in their honor and raised from above as the officers' bodies arrived to Bear River High for a public viewing Wednesday.
The hardest part about being an officer in any large or small town is not knowing what the suspect or bad guy is going to do.
Chad Softwood No, a law enforcement vet and former police chief of the Garland Police Department, commemorating the officers.
What kind of moment was that like for you?
Pretty emotional. I mean, I've worked in law enforcement 36 years, and it's always hard to see when an officer's life is taken.
When Sergeant Sorensen's life was taken, not all of his family learned about it from authorities.
I learned about that incident on Facebook, and I wasn't sure if he was on duty or not, and then to find out later that he was.
Sorensen's relative, Diane Anderson, making the trip down from Idaho to say goodbye one final time.
And I appreciate their service and their willingness to put their lives on the line.
And there's so many people that appreciate their service. You saw the turnout today from all of our coverage from the funeral services, even leading up to this from the Box Elder County Fair, hosting those fundraisers, welcoming Deputy Mike Allred and his K-9 to come there. Really invigorating and just a very celebratory time for the community as they're dealing with this. And you know, Brian and Sarah, you guys were talking about the extraordinary planning and what an endeavor and undertaking that may have been. But you know, we got a little bit of insight to that planning, not just from us participating in that, but also from Hillary Kolner, the spokesperson for DPS. She's saying people were volunteering, whether they were on the clock, off the clock, to make sure that everybody who wanted to participate, tie a blue ribbon, plant a flag, all the different chapters within the police departments across the country calling in to say, hey, you know, we're going to come to this. That's how, that's how this whole thing came together. As you and Sarah have been saying, Brian, a whole community coming together to make sure that we can have a moment like this, that we can honor these fallen officers the right way. Guys?
That is so true, Bayan, whether it's the volunteers who come out and planted somewhere around 300 American flags along this procession route, to the people who are no doubt whipping up food for the family, for the friends. Utah shows up in a big way that way. It really is a remarkable sight to see all of these different people work together to pull this off.
We've talked about how it's been a quiet and somber morning, but we also need to remember it's been a busy and bustling few days really that's gone into making this morning so peaceful for so many. I want to give you guys an idea, if you haven't understood, of where we are right now. Again, we're in Logan. We have the Spectrum right behind us. Again, this is at Utah State University. We're facing the football stadium. It's about a block that way. To our right up the road is where the Logan Cemetery is. That's where the procession went. That's where they brought Officer Estrada. You may have seen some people walk behind us, come and go here over the past few minutes, and that's because as we've seen a lot of these people file out today, they're heading to the parking lots, they're leaving, and they're going to their cars. And the parking situation has been a story in itself. It's limited, but so many people have come. They've brought out shuttles. There's a lot of carpooling going on today to really accommodate all the people who are here. But again, this is our area where we're seeing in Logan, where we saw the hearse come out in the parking lot, where we see the fire trucks with the bunting and ribbons behind us. Really one of the main spots here of the funeral services today, giving us an eye on what's going on this morning.
That's so true. And these firefighters here, we've been watching them taking the bunting off of the trucks, uncovering the lights, because remember, they're going back into service. They've got a job to do. Yeah. They're going back to do that now. And many of these same people will be here tomorrow for Sergeant Sorensen's funeral as well. We talked about it a little bit during the funeral, the fact that all these police officers from all over were here today. Someone had to fill in for them back home from whatever city or town they came from. And so you may have, a West Valley officer filling in Taylorsville or something like that. Yeah. That's just how they fill in the gaps to give everybody a chance to come and pay their respects and honor their colleague.
A bit of an opposite day, if you will, because remember, life, it doesn't stop. In the funeral services today, we've told you a bit about some of the people we heard from. One of the people we heard from the very first time, we haven't heard from her before, was actually Officer Estrada's daughter.
Sienna,
yes. A young girl, and we had the privilege of hearing a few memories she shared about her dad and their experience, and I want to be able to listen to that if we can right now.
He was a great friend to others. He put others before himself. He was a great human being. He will always be remembered for what he did for our country. He lived a great life. He did what he wanted to do for a living, protect people. We love you and miss you very much. Thank you for your time.
Some great words from her there, and we, of course, will remember him. We will remember her, too, for her ability to go up and share and speak about her dad today.
We were kind of looking at her from above, from our seats, and she was sitting next to her mother, surrounded by family, and we thought, okay, she's on the list. Is she going to go talk? Because that's such a big moment for anyone, let alone a young girl. And she walked up there. She had an escort, an officer, and wow. She impressed everybody.
Her uncle, Sienna's uncle, Officer Estrada's older brother,
Jesus, yes.
He acknowledged Sienna, actually, and he said her strength is really what stands out about her. He also talked about her younger brother, and he says her younger brother has the same kind of twinkle in his eye that Officer Estrada had, the same kind of energy and attitude. So what a privilege, really, to hear from them and their loved ones and their family members, and being able to just look at them. Again, we've talked about this so many times, but really this is what we felt today, the love so many people had for Officer Estrada and the love he had for so many people too.
Such a big tribute, and I think we have tape of this a short time ago. You may have heard it when we were talking to Bayan or Jonathan. A helicopter flyover here above the cemetery, above the Spectrum here. Let's take a look at that if we can. So we knew there was going to be a flyover. We didn't quite know what that was going to look like, but wow, that was quite a tribute. We had a DPS helicopter, we had an Intermountain helicopter, I think we had a University of Utah Health helicopter, all sorts of people on the ground and in the air today.
You mentioned we knew about it, so we were anticipating, but it was still enough to stop people in their tracks as they were leaving and heading to the parking lot. Really a big show to show the respect for Officer Estrada today. Again, this all began here at the Spectrum at Utah State. I want to mention, too, they said the start time this morning could be fairly fluid, but they started quite on time, around 10 o'clock sharp. The service lasted a little over an hour, and then from there we saw the procession leave the Spectrum, head down on the surface streets over to Logan Cemetery, where they eventually left the casket.
We heard from so many people today, including Governor Spencer Cox, who was here and offered some words. Let's take a listen into what he had to say.
On Sunday night, August 17th, I got a text message from Commissioner Bo Mason, the Commissioner of Public Safety, a message I pray every single night that I will not receive. As that message came in, he said that there was an active shooting in Tremonton, a place I hold dear, a mayor I love, and that 2 officers were down, a 3rd was wounded, and likely 2 fatalities. Now, the hope I held on to was almost always in the fog of those messages that the first reports are inaccurate. And I said a silent prayer that this was not the case, because I knew that this doesn't happen here. This couldn't happen here.
He talks about it can't happen here, and what he's discussing is he went here to school at Utah State, so really a shock. We're going to be hearing from him again tomorrow for Sergeant Lee Sorensen's funeral as well.
Our coverage will begin in the morning before the funeral begins at 10 on our streaming app, News for Utah Plus, here on midday as well. Anywhere you can watch us, on air or online, we'll be covering this for you, these important community events.
We want to thank you for joining along on our coverage today. More stories coming today for you. ABC4 News 4, 5, and 6. We'll see you then.